A debate that feels straight out of a reality TV show.
We gave you through this stupid president, if you didn't have our military equipment.
It is being alleged that Donald Trump is a Russian agent, codenamed Rand Krasnov. "40 years ago, Trump was identified and groomed as a Russian asset. Additionally, he is talking about buying Gaza in Palestine. He is asking them for their wealth in exchange for half their resources as a guarantee of protection, threatening other countries, blackmailing them, and talking about stealing their resources."
What if the bomb drops on your head, Ray?
On February 28, 2025, a meeting took place at the White House, attended by the U.S. President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance was also present, along with several media representatives. Everything was being broadcast live on cameras. White House chefs were preparing food for the guests, and in the meantime, this meeting turned into one of the most unprecedented diplomatic events in modern history. The meeting transformed into a debate that felt like it belonged to a reality TV show. This meeting has now become a part of history.
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. We gave you through this stupid president, if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in...
Let's understand the issue in detail. For background of the situation. On February 24, 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine, marking the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war. When people hear the word war, they often assume it's a conflict between two sides. But this wasn't always the case. It was one-sided aggression. Ukraine was only fighting in self-defense, while Russia started the war to seize land and resources. To hide the real reason, Putin fabricated various excuses. Sometimes he claimed NATO's expansion was a threat to Russia. Other times, he alleged that Ukraine was full of Nazis, and Russia was fighting to eliminate them. All of these were lies, merely Russian propaganda. There are real reason much was our colonial ambitions. Shocker, the beginning of the Russia-Ukraine war. At the start of the invasion, Russian forces advanced rapidly, capturing northern and eastern parts of Ukraine. In response, the U.S., European countries, and their allies stepped in to support Ukraine. Russia was hit with severe global sanctions. Ukraine received weapons and financial aid, with a brave resistance from Ukrainian forces, supported by Western allies. Ukraine managed to push Russian forces back by September 2022. However, after that, the war reached a stalemate. Look at this map. It shows the territories occupied by Ukraine and Russia in September 2022. Today, most of those territorial controls remain the same. The war has been dragged on for 3 years, with massive casualties on both sides. But Ukraine has failed to regain all its territory. Russia has also failed to capture the remaining Ukrainian areas. The U.S. and Europe's strategy. Over the last 3 years, the U.S. and European countries have followed a strategy of not intervening directly in the war, not sending their troops, only supplying Ukraine with weapons and financial aid, imposing strict sanctions on Russia. Ukraine and its Western allies have maintained that they won't back down until Ukraine regains all its territories. The war returns to its pre-invasion status. Read what happened in 2024. The U.S. presidential elections took place. Donald Trump was re-elected as president.
It is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
During his election campaign, the Trump tear promised that the moment he takes office, he will end the Russia-Ukraine war in one day.
Since I pledged to swiftly end the war in Ukraine. So when I say end it, you can get that. I will have that settlement done within 24 hours.
And now he is determined to end the war at any cost. Trump-Zelensky meeting. To discuss this matter, a meeting was held between Trump and Zelensky. Ukraine's stance was that they are not enjoying this war, but they want a guarantee that if they stop fighting, Russia will not attack them again. For this, they seek a security guarantee from the United States. But Donald Trump wants to ignore this question. On the other hand, Trump told Ukraine that if they continue the war, America will no longer support them. This situation is pushing global politics into a new phase, which could have consequences for the entire world. Since the U.S. has given Ukraine large sums of money and weapons, Donald Trump suggested that Ukraine should give 50% of its natural resource revenues to the United States. This is not a joke. This is the actual proposal Trump presented to Ukraine. Oil, gas, trade deals, ports, infrastructure. Trump wants half of Ukraine's natural resources to go to the U.S.
And I understand that's a big deal, very big deal.
This is the same kind of agreement that the East India Company made in India. The Telegraph called this agreement Ukraine's economic colonization. The Economist even stated that Trump is demanding protection money like the mafia. He is asking Ukraine to hand over half of its wealth so America can protect it. Obviously, no wise politician would give away their country's resources to another nation. So Zelensky refused to sign the initial agreement. He said he would never do anything that would burden the next 10 generations of Ukraine. In response, Donald Trump got angry and started publicly calling Zelensky a dictator.
A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast.
In his social media posts, he wrote that Zelensky must act fast or his country will be gone. After this, Zelensky went to the White House to meet Donald Trump and discuss the mineral resources deal. This meeting took place on February 28th. Everything was happening in front of cameras and was broadcast live. For the first half hour, the meeting went fine. Then the situation began to change. Zelensky said that Putin has violated the ceasefire agreement 25 times. He asked, can Putin be trusted? If Ukraine stops fighting now, Russia might attack again in a few years.
Just ceasefire will not never work. Before my presidency, from the 2014, Putin broken 25 times. His own signature, 25 times he broken ceasefire.
Trump had no answer to this question. He only said that Putin had never broken an agreement with him.
But he never broke to me. He never broke to me.
No, you won't.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said that the path to peace will go through diplomacy.
The path to peace and the path to prosperity is maybe engaging in diplomacy.
In response, Zelensky started listing all the times when Putin and Russia had violated ceasefire agreements.
But during 2014, nobody stopped him. He just occupied and took. He killed people, you know?
Here, a historical fact is important to mention. Ukraine was once the third largest nuclear power in the world. They had countless nuclear weapons. But in 1994, Ukraine became the only country in history to voluntarily give up its nuclear weapons. This was done under the 1994 Budapest Memorandum, signed by Russia, the U.S., and the UK. These countries promised that if any nation acted aggressively against Ukraine, all three would protect it. Clearly, that agreement has failed today, because Putin's Russia has attacked Ukraine. And now America is stepping back from its support. That's why Zelensky asked Vance,
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
what exactly do you mean by diplomacy? At this point, J.D. Vance got angry and accused Zelensky of disrespecting the U.S. president in front of the media.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Zelensky replied that if America doesn't stop Putin now, one day they might face the same problem. Hearing this, Trump became furious. He told Zelensky not to worry about America, because Ukraine itself was in a terrible situation. He accused Zelensky of playing with his people's lives and being disrespectful to the U.S.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
J.D. Vance childishly asked Zelensky if he had ever thanked the United States.
Have you said thank you once?
It's a lot of times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank you?
Even though in the same meeting, Zelensky had already thanked America at least 10 times. Trump and Vance resorted to threats.
You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
I'm not playing cards.
Right now, you don't.
I'm
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives of
in war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
In that same meeting, a reporter asked Trump, "What if Russia violates the ceasefire again?" Trump gave a ridiculous answer, calling it a what-if debate. Instead, he asked, "What if a bomb falls on a reporter's head?"
He's asking, what if Russia breaks the ceasefire?
But what if anything? What if a bomb drops on your head right now?
The President of the United States was making a joke out of the entire situation. When Zelensky finally started responding,
It would be a damn good thing.
Mr.
And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. You're saying you don't want a
But I
ceasefire.
said to you-
I want a ceasefire.
Trump ordered the media to leave. A little while later, Zelensky was asked to leave the White House. The minerals deal was not signed, and the specially prepared meals for both presidents remained untouched. After the meeting, Trump took to social media and stated that Zelensky was not ready for peace and that he had insulted America in the Oval Office. Trump further declared that Zelensky could only return when he was prepared for peace. In response, Zelensky tweeted sarcastically, thanking America multiple times. Following this, many European leaders tweeted in support of Zelensky, and he expressed his gratitude to all of them. The truth is that Trump's hostility towards Zelensky had begun weeks earlier. Under Joe Biden's presidency, Ukraine had received unconditional support. But as soon as Trump assumed office, he organized a meeting between American and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia to discuss Ukraine, without inviting or involving Ukraine in any way. This conference is reminiscent of the 1945 Yalta Conference, where the fate of smaller European countries was decided by the United States, the Soviet Union, and Britain without their input. In contrast, Biden's administration had always upheld the principle, Ukraine without Ukraine. Then, on February 24, 2025, during a vote in the United Nations General Assembly on a resolution against Russia, an astonishing event took place. While most nations worldwide either voted in support of Ukraine or remained neutral, the United States, for the first time, joined Russia and North Korea in voting against Ukraine. This was possibly the first time in 100 years that the U.S. and Russia stood on the same side in a UN vote while most of the world stood on the opposite side. This raises a fundamental question. Why is Trump doing this? It is said that there are two major reasons behind this. The first is Trump's personal dislike for Zelensky. The second is Trump's connection to Russia. Yes, that's right. There are allegations that Donald Trump is a Russian agent. In 2019, the U.S. Congress impeached Trump for soliciting foreign powers' interference in American elections. He was accused of trying to leverage Ukraine's assistance to secure victory in the election. At that time, Trump pressured Zelensky to have the Ukrainian government investigate Hunter Biden, the son of Joe Biden. Hunter Biden was on the board of a Ukrainian energy company that was under investigation in Ukraine. During Obama's administration, when Joe Biden was vice president, his influence led to the removal of Ukraine's prosecutor general on corruption charges, effectively halting the investigation into Hunter Biden's company. Around 2019, Trump called Zelensky, questioning why the investigation had stopped and urging him to reopen it. To blackmail Zelensky, Trump temporarily withheld millions of dollars in military aid. Although the U.S. eventually provided assistance to Ukraine, it was only after persistent appeals from Zelensky's government. When this scandal surfaced, Trump was impeached.
Biggest story, which is the impeachment of President Donald Trump.
The biggest news of the time was the impeachment of President Donald Trump, blamed Zelensky for his impeachment. But the real issue is that Trump is now becoming a threat to the rest of the world. And the reason for this is neo-colonialism. The exploitative mineral agreement offered to Ukraine is just one example. Trump has shown a similar attitude toward other nations. Donald Trump has even spoken about seizing territories of other countries. At one point, he suggested buying Greenland.
I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We need it really for international world security, and I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
U.S. control over the Panama Canal. Trump even joked about turning Canada into the 51st U.S. state, saying, "I said then, Canada should be our 51st state."
I said then Canada should be a 51st state.
Additionally, he has proposed buying Gaza. His solution to the Israel-Palestine conflict is to expel 2 million Palestinians and relocate them elsewhere so that Gaza can be turned into a luxury real estate project, complete with 5-star hotels and luxury cars on its roads.
I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza.
As a real estate development for the future, it would be a beautiful piece of land.
Would the Palestinians
no
have the
big
right
money
to return?
spent. No.
Trump bluntly responded, "No, they won't." Trump also shared an absurd video on his official Twitter account, showcasing his vision for Gaza. He proposed renaming Gaza as Trump Gaza and erecting golden statues of himself everywhere. Similarly, Trump has suggested renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Trump is running his administration with such arrogance and ego that analysts have dubbed it bling diplomacy, threatening other countries, blackmailing them, seizing their resources, and talking about colonizing or invading them. This approach may bring short-term gains against weaker nations, but it is sowing the seeds of America's own downfall. According to an article in Foreign Policy magazine titled "The Bad Economics of Bling," this approach is harmful to America because those subjected to bling tactics tend to distance themselves. Trump is now treating America's old allies the same way. He talks about imposing tariffs on European nations and even India.
If you don't make your product in America, however, under the Trump administration, you will pay a tariff, and in some cases, a rather large one.
In some cases, quite a large tariff. He constantly threatens and blackmails other nations over trivial matters. If any country does not comply with his demands, he wants to impose tariffs on them. It is evident how this approach will hurt the U.S. in the long run. When other countries see how America is treating its allies, it will lead to the formation of opposing alliances. After the Zelensky incident, the European Union, France, Germany, Britain, Ireland, Canada, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, Finland, the Netherlands, Poland, Spain, Italy, and many other countries are now standing together. A new consensus is forming in Europe that they can no longer rely on the U.S. Calls to boycott American companies are growing. There is even talk of creating a European Union army. Some countries are adopting new strategies to deal with Trump. One such strategy is strategic evasion, appearing to agree with Trump outwardly while quietly avoiding his demands. After World War II, when the U.S. emerged as a superpower, various global institutions were established, such as the United Nations and the World Health Organization, where America played a leading role. Today, America's significance is gradually declining, creating a geopolitical vacuum. The question is, who will now lead these global institutions? Major countries need to step up and take leadership. We need strong international cooperation. In fact, it is the duty of every responsible nation and leader to protect smaller countries. Because if this does not happen, neo-colonialism will destroy smaller nations worldwide and push us toward World War III.